They say that the quietest fractures are the ones that hurt the most. The kind that sneak up on you, splintering without a sound, until one day you wake up and realize the pieces don't fit together anymore. I know that ache all too well. It started with a single sentence, uttered in the dim glow of a kitchen light, his voice barely rising above the hum of the fridge. He was standing there, all lanky limbs and uncertain eyes, and he looked right at me, not with the cocky grin of youth, but with this raw, exposed fragility that made my stomach twist. "Could you guide me through it?" My first real moment like that? At first, the words hung in the air like smoke, and I convinced myself I'd imagined them. But the way the silence stretched after, thick and expectant, told me otherwise. In that instant, a chasm opened inside me, wide and uncharted. I should have laughed it off, wrapped him in a quick embrace, steered him toward a friend or some online forum where advice flows free and anonymous. But I didn't. I stood there rooted because buried beneath the shock was a flicker of recognition, a whisper from some forgotten corner of my soul that said, "I hear you." And that echo? It scared me more than the question itself. This isn't a tale I'm eager to share. It's not the stuff of polished memoirs or feel-good confessions. It's messy, shadowed, the kind of story that leaves stains you can't scrub out. Yet here I am, unraveling it thread by thread because ignoring it hasn't made it fade. If anything, it's grown sharper, more insistent, demanding I face the woman I became in its grip. You know that feeling, the one where the lines between protector and something far more tangled blur until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins? If you've ever teetered on that edge, heart pounding against better judgment, then lean in. This is for you. For the nights when loneliness feels like a living thing, coiling around your ribs until you gasp for any scrap of warmth. To grasp how I tumbled into this, you have to see the life I was leading. I'm Elena, 38, wed to Marcus in a union that, from the outside, gleams like a well-tended garden. We share a cozy split level in a leafy suburb where the evenings hum with the distant chatter of barbecues and the soft whir of lawnmowers winding down. 2 reliable sedans in the driveway, a herb garden out back that I tend more out of habit than joy. On the surface, it's the picture of stability, the sort that earns nods of approval at family gatherings. But peel back the layers and it's hollow, echoing with the absence of what once sparked between us. Marcus isn't cruel. Far from it. He's the steady type. Rises before dawn for his engineering job, shoulders the mortgage without complaint, remembers to swap out the air filters before the AC groans in protest. But over the years, that reliability calcified into routine, and I became a fixture in it, like the framed photos on the mantel gathering dust. He'd come home, shoulders slumped from the day's grind, and sink into his armchair with a beer, eyes glazing over the news feed on his tablet. I'd chatter about my day, volunteering at the community center, experimenting with a new bread recipe, and his responses would be murmurs, half-formed, drifting away mid-sentence. The perfume I'd dabbed on for date nights at home? Unnoticed. The way I'd linger in the doorway, hoping for a glance that said I still lit something in him? Met with a distracted wave toward the kitchen. We'd been married 12 years, and somewhere in the blur of carpools and tax seasons, the laughter faded. Intimacy? It dwindled to obligatory touches on anniversaries, mechanical and devoid of fire. I'd lie awake beside him, his snores a rhythmic barrier, tracing the ceiling cracks with my eyes and wondering when I'd stopped feeling like his partner and started resembling a polite stranger sharing space. Some evenings, after he'd nodded off in front of the flickering TV, I'd wander to the sunroom, curl into the wicker chair with a mug of chamomile gone cold, and stare at the fireflies dancing beyond the glass. Waiting. For what? A miracle, maybe. Or just permission to name the void gnawing at me. Then there's Tyler, my stepson. Marcus's boy from his previous life. 19 now, with that fresh-faced intensity of someone just stepping into adulthood. His biological mother vanished when he was 8. No dramatic exit, just a gradual fade. Missed holidays, unanswered voicemails, until one day the line went dead for good. When Marcus and I met, Tyler was a wary 11-year-old, all elbows and guarded silences, peeking from behind his father's legs like I might vanish too. I didn't push. Instead, I baked chocolate chip cookies on weekends, left notes in his lunchbox with dumb jokes, sat through endless video game sessions pretending to care about pixelated battles. Slowly, the walls came down. By high school, he'd perch on the edge of the breakfast bar while I chopped onions for stew, spilling tales of cafeteria drama, crushes that fizzled, ambitions to study graphic design. He never uttered "Mom," and I never fished for it. What bloomed between us was quieter, truer, a tether forged in late-night pep talks and shared eye rolls over Marcus's dad jokes. In a house that felt increasingly like a museum of our former selves, polished but lifeless, Tyler became my anchor. He spotted the new scarf I'd looped around my neck, asked about the novel that had me up past midnight, actually leaned in when I vented about a frustrating shift at the center. That attentiveness? It was nectar to my parched spirit. We'd sneak episodes of quirky indie series in the den, feet tucked under a throw blanket, trading quips that left us stifling giggles so as not to rouse Marcus upstairs. Or we'd hike the nearby trails on Sundays, him snapping photos of wildflowers while I pointed out bird calls, the air crisp with pine and possibility. Those moments stitched me back together, reminding me I could still spark joy in someone. But lately, as he edged toward manhood, broader shoulders, a deeper timbre to his laugh, something shifted. Fleeting brushes of awareness. The way his gaze lingered on my profile during a story, or how my pulse quickened when our shoulders bumped in the narrow hallway. I dismiss it as maternal pride, nothing more. Yet deep down, I knew it was a thread pulling taut, threatening to unravel everything. The evening it all tilted began innocently enough. A Thursday in early fall, leaves skittering across the patio like hurried secrets. Marcus had retreated to bed by 9, citing an early conference call, leaving the house wrapped in that familiar hush. I lingered in the breakfast nook, nursing a pot of Earl Grey that had steeped too long, the steam curling like unanswered questions. The stairs sighed under careful steps, and there was Tyler, padding and wearing faded joggers and a threadbare tee that hung loose on his frame. His hair was tousled, eyes shadowed, not with exhaustion, but with that weighty introspection young men carry when the world's expectations start to press. Mind if we chat? His words were casual, but the undercurrent tugged at me, pulling me upright. I gestured to the stool across from mine, the wooden surface scarred from years of family meals. We settled in, the clock ticking softly like a metronome to our unease. He toyed with a salt shaker, spinning it in slow circles, before the dam broke. "I feel like it's time," he murmured, gaze fixed on the table's grain. "Time for intimacy with someone. But I'm clueless, and the thought of fumbling it terrifies me." My breath caught, a vice squeezing my lungs. At 19, it wasn't the admission itself that jolted me. It was the vulnerability laced through it, the trust in laying it bare to me. I swallowed, aiming for steady. "That's a huge leap, Tyler. Nerves are part of it." "Have you talked to anyone? A buddy, maybe?" He shook his head, a wry half-smile ghosting his lips. "Nah, they'd rib me endlessly. And honestly, I don't want generic tips. I want real insight. From someone who gets it." His eyes lifted then, locking onto mine with an intensity that pinned me in place. "Someone like you. You've always had my back, Elena. Made me feel like my worries aren't stupid." The air thickened, charged with the unsaid. I forced a chuckle, light and deflecting. "Well, years of wrangling a stubborn kid like you have their perks." But the laugh fell flat, echoing hollow in the space between us. Silence bloomed again, not awkward but laden, as if we both sensed the precipice. Without forethought, my hand drifted to his forearm, a reflex, comforting, one I'd offered countless times for scraped knees or exam jitters. His skin was fever-warm under my palm, and instead of withdrawing, I let my fingers rest there, tracing the subtle flecks of muscle. His breath hitched, eyes flicking to the contact, then back to my face. In that suspended beat, electricity hummed unbidden and fierce. I yanked back, throat clearing like a record scratch. "Listen, you're going to nail this. You've got heart, empathy, qualities that matter way more than technique." He nodded, but his stare lingered, probing, as if sifting for truths I wasn't voicing. He rose eventually, murmuring a good night that felt like a question, and vanished upstairs. I remained, mug-forgotten, pulse thundering in my ears. That exchange wasn't mere counsel. It unearthed a mutual thirst, for validation, for bridging the isolation that clawed at us both. And once acknowledged, such yearnings don't retreat quietly. They burrow, insistent, reshaping the ground beneath your feet. I wish I could claim that marked the close of it, a blip swallowed by routine. But denial is a fragile shield, and mine shattered by dawn. His confession replayed in loops, the earnest plea, the faith he placed in me alone. Was it solely about inexperience, or did his gaze betray a deeper current, mirroring my own unspoken? Time warped in the limbo, elastic and unforgiving. Ultimately, I didn't utter refusal's finality. Days later, acquiescence bloomed not in proclamation, but in concessions. A palm lingering on his wrist during counsel, eyes holding his across the breakfast bar. I framed it nobly, empowering him, dispelling fears, gifting assurance. Yet self-deception rang false. This quenched my thirst too, restoring agency, allure, the thrill of desire's gaze. Touches escalated, tentative then bold. Fingertips grazing in the fruit bowl's reach, my thigh pressing his under the table's veil. His stare would trace my mouth mid-sentence. I'd meet it unflinching, the boundary dissolving like mist. Nightly, the gulf narrowed, propriety's fence crumbling until virtue and vice entwined indistinguishable. And then, the crest. A drizzly Saturday, Marcus away on a client retreat. No farewell peck, just a curt text about delays. The house sighed into solitude, rain pattering like insistent fingers on the roof. Tyler claimed a headache, bowing out of errands. Our day unfolded in sparse exchanges, words rationed as if speech might ignite the tinder. Dusk drew us to the den unbidden, gravitating like planets in eclipse. No screen flickered this time, no distractions, just the storm's murmur and our synchronized inhales. I settled beside him, nearer than propriety dictated, the cushion dipping us toward convergence. Wordless minutes unfurled, a prelude to surrender. His hand sought mine, tentative, fingers weaving with a gentleness that belied the storm within. Warmth bloomed at the clasp, a spark to dry tinder. He inclined, slow as sap rising, granting me every out. Yet I mirrored, drawn inexorably. Our mouths met in tentative exploration, a dam breach flooding restraint. Guilt specters scattered in the fervor. We mapped each other with reverent hands, breaths mingling in hushed symphony. It unfolded languid, profound, less conquest than communion, bodies conversing in whispers of rediscovered self. Afterward, we cleaved close, pulses ebbing in tandem, the rain a veil for our hush, but his murmur rent the afterglow. I love you. Uttered with guileless purity, it struck like a fault line. I stiffened voiceless as he repeated it, softer, a vow etched in vulnerability. Response eluded me. How to counter when foundations quaked? Identity fractured, spouse, guardian, self, all shards in the deluge. Silence stretched, eloquent in its betrayal. Confessing more than pleas could. Dawn pierced the veil. The home askew in subtle disharmony, air stale, shadows elongated, as if the structure mourned our trespass. Sleep evaded me. I traced plaster fissures till gray light seeped, replaying the night's tapestry. His tentative caresses, the unguarded I love you, a talisman too potent for daylight. The mirror yielded a stranger, hollowed gaze, pallor like ash, lips bruised by secrets. Downstairs, Tyler hummed over the percolator, aura untroubled, brewing as if continuity reigned. His nonchalance gnawed. How could he navigate so blithely while I splintered? I delayed descent, eavesdropping on his routine until the front door clicked, errands perhaps, before venturing down. A steaming mug awaited on the island, steam curling like an olive branch turned accusation. I sipped once, scalded, then abandoned it. The day blurred in evasion, flitting from study to attic, feigning tasks, a specter in my domain. Glimpses of him, lounging on the glider with a book, thumbing messages, radiated ease, a lightness that mocked my turmoil. His smiles upon crossing paths felt like barbs. Queries about my rest, invitations to share memes, all laced with oblivious normalcy. Dread coiled tighter. Did he grasp the abyss we'd breached or revel in its thrill? By nightfall, artifice exhausted me. I barricaded in the powder room, faucet gushing to smother introspection's roar. Marcus rang then, voice tinny through static. Weary updates, a quip about Tyler's upbeat vibe lately. You two click like no one else. It's gold. The irony clawed. Our bond lauded as virtue was my undoing. I truncated the call, feigning fatigue, then collapsed on the duvet's edge, thoughts a maelstrom. No tears came, only a void, replaying intimacies I couldn't excise. Distance became doctrine, bypassed common rooms, nibbled solo in the alcove, bolted my sanctum. He perceived naturally, texts pinged, "You all right?" "Spill if I messed up," unanswered. Nocturnal taps echoed at my portal, subdued, inquisitive, lingering like phantoms. I'd freeze, breath-baited, willing retreat. Occasionally footsteps receded, but doubt lingered. Culmination arrived etched on vellum, slipped beneath my door, one gloaming. I'm all in for whatever this is. Succinct, seismic, 5 syllables upending my fragile stasis. He envisioned dawn, not dusk. I, mired in the crevasse, grasped the snare's depth. Sleepless, the missive haunted my bureau, reread till ink blurred. Fingers quivered, respiration shallowed, psyche reeled between terror and treacherous yearning. Unspooling commenced in the witching hour's grip. Revelation crash title. I'd bartered soul for ephemeral solace, minutes of visibility amid invisibility's siege. Who persisted in this husk? Not Marcus's consort. Affection had atrophied to civility, not Tyler's maternal compass. That mantle lay shattered. What remnant endured? Recollection dredged the genesis, his faltering query, trust's tender offering, and I interrogated. Genuine reciprocity, or my predation on fragility? Did I initiate the breach, or did isolation forge our clandestine pact? Affection masquerading as exigency, or raw wound seeking suture? The mirror mocked anew, sallow, strained, vitality leached. Who lingers in this shell? I breathed the query of fracture in the ether. This transcended betrayal's dyad. It indicted my complicity, lapses, frailties. Yet amid self-flagellation lurked a rebel ember. Reluctance to relinquish the renaissance of relevance, the ecstasy of essentiality. That admission chilled deeper than shame. Flight fantasies flickered, duffel stuffed, threshold crossed, sans backward glance. Destination? Narrative? I entangled with my stepson. Identity eviscerated. Absurdity loomed. Who'd absorb such confession? Marcus reclaim me. Tyler pursue? Or both release a phantom unmoored? Stasis or exodus equally abyssal. Paralysis reigned, desperation dueling delusion, feign normalcy, exorcise the specter. But verity mocked. Normalcy lay in ruins, ever enacted the irrevocable? A scar pulsing not as reminiscence, but viscera? I have. Rehearsals yield no absolution. It endures, a tenant in my marrow. Am I solitary in this morass? This fusion of dearth and transgression? Query the void. Have you, adrift in obscurity's maw, clasped at illumination's gleam, heedless of peril? If echoes resound, voice them. Anonymous murmur suffices, I comprehend. Solace blooms in solidarity. Isolation's burden lightens when shared. In the ensuing weeks, the house morphed into a labyrinth of echoes, each corner whispering indictments. I'd catch Tyler in the yard, earbuds in, sketching on his tablet with that boyish focus, grins erupting at unseen jests. He appeared unburdened, trajectory unaltered. Classes at the local college, gigs designing logos for indie bands, flirtations with peers that hinted at futures untarnished. Did that eve linger for him as ephemera, a youthful detour? Or had it sculpted silent contours unvoiced? I pondered from the bay window, steam from forgotten tea veiling my vigil, the pain cool against my brow. Distance solidified, a bulwark of my forging, polite nods in passage, queries deflected with vagueness. Yet his eyes sought mine still, probing for fractures in my facade. And I'd avert, pulse skittering, lest revelation betray us both. Marcus returned bronzed from his trip. Anecdotes of deals sealed over golf, oblivious to the seismic shift. Dinners resumed, his recounts met with my murmurs, Tyler's interjections bridging gaps. Facade held, but internally fissures widened. Nights I'd prowl the upper hall, moonlight slanting through blinds like accusatory bars, interrogating shadows. Therapy beckoned, a clandestine appointment with Dr. Lara, a soft-spoken sage in a sunlit office scented with lavender. Boundaries dissolve in voids, she observed, her pen poised over notes. You're grieving a marriage's demise while grappling redemption's path. Sessions unearthed strata. Marcus's detachment not malice, but his own armor against burnout. My tether to Tyler, a misdirected lifeline amid spousal drift. Reclaim your narrative, she urged. Not through erasure, but authorship. Emboldened, I broached the chasm with Marcus one crisp autumn eve, leaves carpeting the patio like burnished coins. Wine loosened tongues, confessions cascaded, my isolation's profundity, intimacy's atrophy, the yearning for partnership reborn. He listened, unblinking, then exhaled. I've been checked out, Elle. Work's devoured me. I forgot us in the process. No rage, just reckoning, a pact to counsel together to dismantle routines chaining us. Progress crept. Walks sans phones, rediscovered touches tentative as spring buds. Yet Tyler loomed, a specter in periphery. Confrontation crystallized on a frost-kissed morning, kitchen aglow with dawn's tentative gold. He entered for coffee, our eyes colliding, mine resolute, his wary. "We need to address it," I said, voice steady despite the quake within. He nodded, perching on a stool, steam rising between us like a veil. Words tumbled. The night's aberration, born of mutual voids but unsustainable, corrosive. "You're stepping into your world, Tyler, full of possibilities unshadowed by this. I cherish our history, but it can't veer there again. I'm seeking my footing. You deserve yours unencumbered." Tears glistened in his lashes, but maturity gleamed. I get it. It felt real, but I see now it was us grasping at straws. I don't want to lose you as you. Embrace followed, chaste, restorative, sealing a pivot,